Notice if you didn't follow last class, I have the mirror set up. I don't know if it's actually working because I can't see myself, other than the reflection. So hopefully that's a little bit helpful as a different perspective on the way we're moving. So as usual, we go through a few strokes of the sword to prepare our body to just sort of limber up a bit. So we turn the body 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. When we turn, as we spin, we turn the legs. We go over the head. And we relax the shoulder. Okay. So when we relax the shoulder, we fold the elbow and it goes over the top and we're here. So this is really a fundamental in all forms of broadsword. It goes over the head. It's called over the head technique. It's called gohao. Gohao do is over the head. We stroke over the head. Tai Chi's done slower than the typical sword or broadsword movements, but essentially the motions are the same. So if you were doing a Kung Fu sword form, you would probably still learn it fairly slowly, because if you're new at this, you don't want to compromise your safety by just swinging this thing wildly and not have any control, because you have this limb. If it's in the wrong place, you could actually end up injuring yourself by poking yourself or getting something caught in there. When we hold the sword like this and we turn, this becomes an extension of our arm. Obviously, we have direction of movement as we cut up, and cut up is just the upper body, but you have to turn the body to create the volume of movement and also the direction. You want to turn the body in order to keep your center line more aligned with the motion. If you don't turn the body, the sword really can't make it parallel to the body the same way, because you create the line of movement by how you maneuver through the space. And is there any benefit to that? Well, if you're building spatial awareness and sort of perspective of what you're wielding as far as an apparatus, could be a staff, it could be a spear, it could be just your arm, that you're controlling the dimension of movement within the realm of your space. So for proprioception and to avoid things that happen as an age-related degeneration, is kind of lose track of where your limbs are. You're bumping into walls and you're getting bruised, and all that stuff happens. And because we don't pay attention to a lot of times that we're in situations where you're in tight quarters. We're so used to doing things, just without thinking about it, that when things change, you actually will end up bumping your head and so forth. I know, like, if I put on like one of those construction hats that construction people wear, or even something that has like something that changes what you have on the top of your head as far as distance, you bump your head. You walk into somebody, you get into a car or something, and you don't realize that you have something above you. So you just go in normally, and because your head got bigger because of this thing that's on your head, you end up banging yourself or bumping into it. So it's just, you lose perspective of things. So you can imagine, when you pick up something with your hand, you don't really know how long it is, you start to lose control. So that's something that we actually develop. How do you know that you can spin within the realm of your space? How do you know that when you chop this direction? So you have limits. And what's really good about using something like an apparatus is that you start to control the movements in the realm of your own space. So that's the relative to position that I talk about. Shoulder width, 45 degrees, horizontal, vertical up, vertical down. So all of these things become directional. So you really bring in a lot of insight into what you're doing with your limbs as far as your joint angle positions. So if you want to approach naturalness of motion with your joints and use your joints correctly, you first have to know where they're going, how do you get there, and how do you manipulate your skeleton to create that motion. And those motions, while they look linear and circular, is a multiple of things happen in the body that creates those actions. So it's kind of an illusion. It appears to look like it's smooth and soft and so forth, but it doesn't happen easily. And you know from your practice that you really have to develop that control. But that control is really sensitivity and perspective of space. So when we speak of proprioception and knowing your body in space, this is really something that's heightened tremendously because the magnification of the extension of what you're holding, everything got bigger all of a sudden. Okay, so let's go through the sequence from here. All right, we open the stance and we start. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. We sit back and we turn the corner and we have this 45-degree image. It's really the same side, not mirror image. And then we're here. We go down and we lift and we go into that corner and you're following me right from behind. But you actually don't have a camera behind, so it's a little bit difficult to track. So you follow, now you're following me from behind and I'm here. So you see this from behind and we're like this. And we turn and we're here. I kick up and I switch my feet and I stab. I turn 1, 2, 3, 4. So everything is setting up for your next motion. 1, 2, 3, 4, if we were doing it like that, right? So we're here, and we step up like this, and we chop, and then step up. You can see there's an action like this. Then when we turn, we have this right arm down here. This hand's going to go to the back. We have to sit back in this one in order to stand up. So a lot of times when you turn and you don't find the position, you just kind of go like that, you're going to be a little bit out of control. So hopefully I think I can use that mirror to turn. So you turn like this. You sit back. This is when the hand comes down, and then we go up. And then you draw back, this goes down, and you push forward. And then you sit back, and you could do that if that was one of your positions, or you could turn. And then you would step forward, and then drop the sword in, and then come back up. Okay. So in this instance, over here, and I turn, so you can see the dimension of the movement there, and then I sit back, and I'm here. So this is 45 degrees to the back. So it's 45 degrees to the back. So you see, if I cycle around, you could see the position, and you see the knee. Okay, and you see the heel. And then you do it like this, and then it comes up if you were to push, or if you come up, you sit back, you turn, there's your horizontal sword, and then you go over the head, and then you step up. So you notice when I go over the head, I kind of shrink down, and that kind of helps you create the space. Because if you just stay rigid and you go like this, you have a little trouble. So don't bring the sword over your head like this. Bring your arm over your head. And then go like this. Now, everyone's arms are a little bit different as far as lengthwise. So if your arms you feel a little bit shorter, then kind of shrink your head like a turtle. In the Wudang styles, the turtle and the snake are the kind of the reptiles that they use to define some of the characteristics, or actually a symbol. They're kind of, just like what do you call those? Like you have a team and then there's a mascot. So that's kind of what it represents. So we're here. When you slice and you fold and you dip, that kind of helps you build integration too. So when we're here and we sit back and push forward, you wind it up and then you come up. Then you level the sword and you turn. So set up your positions first, and then you'll have a better time getting the slices in the correct direction. See? So when you sit back and you turn, you're using this hand to push it forward. Okay? So those are, some of the movements that when I was doing the form that came to mind that we need to kind of figure out as what we're trying to do with the movement. So here, I'm going to do this. Sit back. Now I'm going to turn here, and then I'm going to turn to here. Now, when I open, I kind of counterbalance my movement, and then I shift and poke. So without the shifting, you're not going to be as balanced. So you take your time, shift your weight, and enter that space. Then you're going to drop like this. So you drop your wrist, you flip, and it comes closer to your body as you turn. So when you can see from the different directions of movement that when you turn, it's parallel to your chest, right? So when you turn, then you can go straight out like this. Once you're here, you turn the sword like this. Then you're going to come back up into this rear corner with that sweeping leg, and then switch the feet. So when you kick up, you end up here. So really, we step up. Sometimes we teach it as this, and then you're doing it like this. But the movement actually should be kind of realizing that you're coming up with the leg and then switching back and then doing that. So that's one way of performing that technique. So there's stylistic differences, and then there's technique, but essentially you're coming to this position and you're switching feet, and then you're poking down. So that's essentially what happens. So any of these movements, when you step forward with the leg going with it, you're sort of pulling that sword forward. So as I drag my leg forward, I actually drag the sword forward. As I start to move up, I'm moving up, keeping that one single rooted leg, all right? So let's see, what else is there that we do? How about when we slice around and we end up here and stepping back. And then we lift the knee and we do the sliding step, 1, 2, 3. And then this is the other 45, 3, and then that goes up and then down. Okay, so when you're here, you're stepping back and you're sitting here as you pick your knee up and you go down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2. So you can see this direction. So I'm heading in this direction, and you see from that direction the 45 line. Then I'm here, right? So I'm here, and then I turn, and then I'm in this corner. Okay, and then I flip the sword over, and I'm here. So you can see this direction, and hopefully you can see that direction. So I'm here, 1, 2, 1. You see the sword is tracking like that. And then I'm here, I lift and I turn back. So now I'm facing out. When you see from behind that I'm like this, this goes over the head like that. And then I come over the head. And this is like brushing the knee, and I chop. This sword goes like this. I turn, fold the elbow, and I push out. I drop down, I turn, I bring this up like this, and here, and this is opposite, it's 90 degrees to this mirror, because that mirror is set up at a 45-degree angle. So that gives you an idea that when you stroke like this and go down and lift, there's an angle, there's an angle, there's an angle. So it's kind of like a square. It's kind of like a diamond as far as the angular positions. 2, 3, 4. But you can't see that normally in space because we're passing through. Right? This is vertical like this, and then it comes across, and then it comes up like this, and it goes up like that. So it's kind of amazing the angular positions that you end up memorizing in your body as, I don't know, part of that training. It's just your body learns, and it defines it. And then you develop this muscle memory. How do you know it's vertical or horizontal? How do you know it's vertical? How do you know it's horizontal? How do you know it's horizontal? How do you know it's 45, 45? Depending on where it goes, as 45, it's slicing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, you have gradations of 45 degrees. This is shoulder height. We really don't have this unless you go over the head. And then you drop, and it comes up, and you turn. And you go up, and you turn. If you're like this, and it goes like this, your hand is chopping down, you're drawing back, and you poke. You turn, you draw down, and you poke. So the coordination between this and this is this is on top, this is down the bottom, and this goes out. And then you sit back and turn, or you go to the corner and to the corner. So look at from here to here to here. From here to here to here to here. Actually, that's a crisscross, but actually it's like doing the infinity sign is really doing this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So, everything in movement is actually a pattern. So when I do all these patterns in our fundamentals and the Tai Chi paradigm warm-ups, they're actually training your body to do many of the things that we're already doing. But the thing is, we don't see the small movements, we see the big movements. So the small movements are actually happening in here, where your manipulation of your limbs are. So when they say it's an extension of your body, it is an extension of the body, but where does the movements extend from? They extend from your center and the control of the movements that you've developed over the period of time, developing the reference points that your body has to track is what you actually develop. And is that important? It's probably very important to develop spatial awareness and coordination and the ability to be, functional as techniques, because traditionally these are, this is a weapon, it's a sword, and what were swords developed for? They were developed for combat, and that's what it is. So you're simulating combat movements, using it as an apparatus, but we don't go out there and use these today. Maybe in some places they do, but we're practicing as an art form, and the art form is to cultivate it and perfect it, to its highest level. When you talk about apparatus or weapons, you can take anything and use it as an assault weapon if you want to. If you're using it, you can get a 2x4 and it does the same damage as a sword could do if you were using it just to, assault someone. But the thing is, most people that practice these type of apparatus are not out there using it like this. We're practicing it to develop coordination and understanding, the capacity of what something wielding a weapon like this would be capable of doing. So it's really the coordination of the body, whether we do it with the sword or without the sword, and it's something that we actually practice sometimes in class. If I were to do this sword form, say for instance, how do you do it empty-handed, right? When you're holding the sword and you come up like this and you turn, you're simulating the motion, and we do this sometimes with the stick and so forth, and what happens is you begin to learn the connection of the body as you learn the movements. And this is just practicing the same sword form empty-handed. So how does this happen? It's because your body knows the movements based on what you've programmed into the body and how the two hands kind of work together to create the movement. And your body actually simulates the movement, and you can see the body form, and it represents everything that we're just doing as a form. But you have to be able to have that position and go through it as if you were holding the sword. Now, because you know the form, you can see what each of these movements are representing, right? So I'm doing this as if it was an empty hand form, right? So we push forward, and we have the movements like this. So how do we do this? We have to first program it into the body, right? We program it into the body, and then we know that this is what's happening. How does the hand know what to do with each movement? Because we've learned it with something in the hand. Okay, so I just went through a lot of those movements. So you can see, you can try it yourself to see if it works for you. It might be a little bit difficult in the beginning because it's not tangible. See, tangibility or association with what we do really comes from the experience, right? So without the experience of holding this and wielding this sword in this way where you have programmed these movements into your body, that's just an example to show you that that does happen and your body does learn it and know it. But if I was to teach the sword form like that without this in your hand, you probably have a lot of trouble figuring out where the blade is, where it's going, and how it's going to, sort of impact your movements, because you really can't feel the difference. Now, as you build, knowing where your sword is as an edge of the movement, then you start to recognize, so when I go like this, and I go like this, and I go like this, and I go like this, I actually know that it actually feels like I have something in my hand. So that's, maybe that's like the phantom limb. You already programmed it into your system because your neurons and everything that's firing is experiencing, and you have developed this imagination, it's called visualization. You're copying the movement as if you're running through it in your mind. And we're doing that constantly anyways. So that's what some of the amazing that happens to you if you're doing systematized, controlled movements over time that's programmed sequentially. Now, if you didn't have a form, you didn't have a sequence to work with as a vehicle to practice, it would be random and you would never be able to learn it. It's just an amazing way of understanding how we learn movement. So anyways, back to this. See if I can get through the sequence without getting distracted and thinking what else I think you might want to know. So we're here again, and we went through it. Now I have a sword in my hand, so it's going to be visually much more close to what you've been practicing with something in your hand. And we're here. Here's the single-legged stance. We sit back, we lift the knee, we heel kick, and we poke, push, and we turn again. Then we go to the next section of the form, and then we're continuing with this leg of the form, which is really movements that we've already done in the first corner. So this is sort of a repeat of a lot of the movements that you've already done. That's stepping up, this is going over the back, and then uppercut, and then here's the big circle, and then down, and poke. Then we push the sword again, so there's a lot of that type of movement, and we skip. We turn, and we're here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're here. And we do the sliding steps. 1, 2, 3, spin, spin, and it goes over the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then back to this camera side, and we're here. Now we're going to retreat, and I'm going to swing around. Let me go over here for a second, see if we can catch that mirror. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then we go forward, and I'm going to go to that back corner. Now you can see from there the two images, and I go over the top and I poke. Now I'm going to do the diagonal flying. 1, 2, and then I'm going to do this, and you can see from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we're here. Actually, I'm here. 1, 2, 3, and I come up, back. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Then I go to the corners. I'm going to step back. 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see from behind. Okay, and then I chop, I poke. I'm going to step back, and we're doing these movements. 1, 2, 3, 4, over the top, around, flip it over, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's the complete form. I kind of went through it fast, but the thing is, the mirror, actually you could see that the dimension of movement really changes. It's not as flat as the body would think it is, because we're dealing with three-dimensional movement, and 3 dimensions is just probably just one of the ways you can look at it. It's 3-dimension. It's actually multi-dimensional because each component actually has 3 dimensions. So you can imagine blending your 3-dimensional movement is really pretty complex stuff in space, because we're dealing with forward, backward, right, left, center, up and down in one, sort of perspective. But because we're moving 360 degrees, and then you have all of these permutations of space, so you can imagine how many multi-dimensional motions you have to track based on that. But you can't really figure it out. You just have to do it. So that's kind of how complicated things can get. It's not meant to discourage you. It's just meant to give you some, food for thought to realize that this stuff is really complex and it's not easy to learn. So it's not, you shouldn't be discouraged. You just keep working at it and your body will figure it out, and over time these amazing things will happen. And it's just my experience. That's about all I can go on. So anyways, hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you next time. Give us a thumbs up, and I'll see some of you in class soon. Anyways, have a good day. I think it's going to stop raining. All right, see you next time.